5 years is a long time to rebuild a life. It's long enough for wounds to scab over and for new habits to form. Long enough to memorize bus schedules and grocery store aisles. Long enough for a baby to become a little girl who laughs when she loses her first tooth. It's also long enough to think your past won't come knocking, only to find it waiting for you in the middle of an ordinary day. In March, the air in New York City softens just a little. The sting of winter retreats, leaving behind puddles and the occasional crocus pushing through the dirt. I had learned to love March, not because of the weather, but because it marked another year of survival. It marked 5 years since I had walked away from the man I loved and the dangerous world he inhabited. 5 years since I had moved into a tiny apartment in Queens with nothing but a suitcase, a positive pregnancy test, and the conviction that I had to protect my unborn child from the chaos that had consumed my marriage. My daughter Lucia was the reason I kept going when everything seemed too heavy. She had been conceived in a moment of fragile peace toward the end of our marriage. A peace that was quickly shattered when Giovanni told me he was considering marrying another woman to settle a war between families. I had left before I realized I was pregnant. I discovered it in a gas station bathroom while sitting on the cold tile floor, my hands shaking. I had stared at the 2 pink lines and sobbed, torn between fear and joy. I had promised my unborn child that she would grow up free from fear, even if it meant leaving behind the only man I had ever loved. I hadn't told Giovanni because by the time I knew, I was already hundreds of miles away, living under my maiden name and trying to start over. I had convinced myself I was doing the right thing. Lucia deserved better than secret deals and bodyguards and gunfire. She deserved a father who wasn't half in and half out of a criminal empire. She deserved a mother who wasn't constantly looking over her shoulder. 5 years later, we lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a noisy radiator. The rent was never quite easy, but I paid it every month by working 2 jobs. My morning started before sunrise at Pasticceria Vittoria, a family-run bakery on the Lower East Side that smelled like espresso and rising bread. I baked croissants, filled cannoli shells, and swept flour from the worn tiles. My afternoons were spent at a local community college, taking classes toward a degree I hoped would lead to something stable. My evenings were for Lucia. We colored, read picture books, and sometimes watched the sunset from our fire escape if the weather was kind. On the best days, we went to the park where she chased pigeons, and I watched the clouds. On the hardest days, I was too tired to do more than read to her while my eyes drifted closed. Still, our life was steady. It was honest. It was ours. Lucia was 4.5 now, a whirlwind of curls and questions. She had my dark hair and Giovanni's deep brown eyes. When she was angry, she furrowed her brow like him. And when she concentrated on a puzzle, she bit her lower lip like I do. She knew nothing about the world I had left. To her, Papa was a word from the storybooks at the library. Her world was her mama, her teachers, the lady at the bodega who gave her lollipops, and the stray cat that sometimes slept on our fire escape. I had never told her about her father. How could I? How do you explain Mafia and arranged marriages and violence to a child whose biggest worry was whether she would get to eat a sprinkle cookie that day? I told myself I would tell her someday, when she was older and could understand the complexities of love and danger. Until then, I shielded her. I kept my maiden name, Garcia, and never looked back. On an ordinary Tuesday in early March, I overslept. Lucia had been up in the night with a cough, and by the time I settled her back down, my alarm clock had been blinking 3 a.m. for half an hour. I woke with a start, heart racing, and realized I had 20 minutes before my shift. Lucia was asleep, her little chest rising and falling. I kissed her forehead, whispered that Mama would be right back, and tiptoed around the apartment collecting my uniform and work shoes. I scribbled a note for our neighbor, Mrs. Patel, who kept an eye on Lucia when she was sick, and slipped a 20 under her door. Mrs. Patel, a retired schoolteacher from Delhi, was a blessing. She pretended not to see the envelope and called me after every shift to tell me everything Lucia did, as if I hadn't memorized every movement. She ate her applesauce. She asked about the trucks on the street. She told me a story about a dragon, she would say. It made it easier to leave. The March wind bit at my cheeks as I hurried down the block to the subway. The sunrise was muted by clouds, but I could see a hint of pink at the horizon. I wrapped my coat tighter and jogged down the stairs, sliding my Metro card through the turnstile and catching the train just as the doors closed. The car was nearly empty except for a man reading a newspaper and a woman in scrubs. I clutched the metal pole and let my head rest against the cool window. My mind wandered to the day ahead. Tuesdays were slower than weekends, but Pasticceria Vittoria had started hosting wedding cake consultations in a private room. People with money loved the old-world charm of the bakery, the marble tables and brass fixtures. They'd sample various layers while discussing guest lists and flower arrangements. I didn't see the appeal in spending thousands on something that would be gone in 8 bites, but I kept that opinion to myself. Tips on VIP tables were good, and good tips meant an extra bag of groceries or an extra pair of shoes for Lucia. I got to the bakery 10 minutes late, which was an eternity in Marco's mind. Marco was the front-of-house manager, a man in his early 50s who had worked at Pasticceria Vittoria since he was a teenager. He was all salt and pepper hair, rolled sleeves, and a constant sheen of flour on his apron. He was strict but fair, and he gave me extra shifts when he could. He was waiting at the back door, his eyes wide, his hands wringing a dish towel as if it were someone's neck. "Sophia! Finally!" he whispered fiercely as soon as I pushed open the back door. He still called me by my Italian married name sometimes because that's how I had first applied for the job. "Where have you been? The VIP is already here. They want their tasting to start immediately. Table 7, the private room. And..." He lowered his voice. "It's him." I froze. "What do you mean, him?" I asked, my stomach plunging to my knees. "Mr. Ricci," Marco hissed, eyes darting towards the swinging kitchen door as if it were listening. "And he's not alone." The world narrowed. The noise of the kitchen faded, the smell of yeast and sugar turning to ash in my mouth. Giovanni Ricci. I hadn't said his name in years, hadn't allowed myself to think it out loud. My mind conjured his face unbidden. Sharp jawline, dark hair, eyes that could be tender or terrifying. 5 years had passed, and yet hearing his name made my pulse race as if I were still 23, and standing outside a courthouse trembling. I swallowed hard, forcing air into my lungs. My voice cracked. "Why is he here?" Marco shrugged helplessly. "He didn't say. He doesn't have to say. He walked in, asked for the private room, and said he wanted a tasting. He said to bring our best. He said no one else in the bakery was to enter that room except the server. That server is you." "I can't," I whispered, panic rising. "Marco, I can't do this." My mind darted to Lucia. Was it safe to leave her with Mrs. Patel? Did Giovanni know where I lived? Did he know about our daughter? 1,000 thoughts crashed in my head. Marco squeezed my shoulder. "Listen," he said firmly. "You don't have to talk to him about anything personal. You are a server. You bring cake and coffee. That's all. He won't recognize you." "How could he not recognize me?" I demanded. "We were married." Marco blinked. "You didn't tell me that." I hadn't. When I got the job, I had given my maiden name and a fake story about working in a cafe in Boston. I hadn't told Marco that my ex-husband owned half the city. "It was a long time ago," I said, my voice weak. "Please don't fire me." "I'm not firing you," Marco sighed. "But I can't serve him myself. My hands are shaking. Jessica called in sick. You're our only hope." He tried to smile. It looked like a grimace. "If you want to keep your job, please take that tray. Keep your head down. Don't engage. Don't let him see you cry. Professional, efficient, invisible. Invisible." The word hit me like a slap. I had spent the last 5 years perfecting invisibility, blending into the background, avoiding places where the wealthy dined, never using my married name. I had thought I had succeeded. Yet here was fate, dragging me back into the light. I didn't have the luxury of running. Lucia's cough at 3 a.m, the rent due next week, the half tuition I still owed for my classes. All of that anchored me to this place. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay," I said. "But if he tries anything..." He won't, Marco said. He's with people. I saw a woman and a child. Maybe it's a family thing. Family. The word twisted in my chest. I shoved my hands into the sink and scrubbed them, shaking. I tied my apron around my waist and smoothed my hair, tucking flyaways behind my ears. I glanced at my reflection in a metal mixing bowl. I looked older. My face was thinner. My eyes had fine lines at the corners from stress. I looked like someone who had been through something and survived. I hoped that would shield me. Carrying a tray of glasses and a carafe of water, I pushed through the swinging door into the main dining room. Sunlight streamed in through the tall windows, illuminating tables of couples and families enjoying their pastries. The private room was at the back of the bakery, behind a heavy velvet curtain. I pulled the curtain aside and stepped inside. He was there. 5 years and a lifetime later, Giovanni Ricci sat at a marble table, his posture relaxed, his presence electrifying. He wore a dark suit without a tie, the first buttons of his shirt undone. His hair was slightly longer than I remembered, waves falling over his forehead. He had stubble, and a faint scar at his jaw that hadn't been there before. He looked every inch the powerful man he had always been, yet his eyes, those deep brown eyes, widened when they landed on me. Recognition flashed like a lightning bolt. His expression flickered through shock, anger, and something else I couldn't name. He stood up so quickly his chair scraped the floor. "Sophia?" he said, my name a question and a prayer on his lips. I swallowed and bowed my head slightly. "Mr. Ricci," I managed, my voice almost steady. "Welcome to Pasticceria Vittoria. What can I get for you?" My heart pounded so loudly I wondered if he could hear it. Behind him, on the right, sat a woman who looked like she belonged on the cover of a magazine. She wore a cream silk dress that hugged her figure, and diamonds that sparkled even in the dim light. Her hair was blonde and sleek, her makeup flawless. She looked at me as if I were dirt. This had to be Isabella Castellano, his fiancée. She toyed with a napkin and glanced at her manicured nails. On Giovanni's left sat a little girl. She had dark hair pulled into 2 pigtails with pink ribbons. She wore a pale yellow dress with white lace at the collar. She held a small doll in her lap. Her shoes dangled above the floor. When she looked up at me, I saw Giovanni's eyes staring back. Brown, deep, and curious. A small hand reached out to touch Giovanni's sleeve. "Papa?" she whispered in Italian, her voice soft. "Chia." "Who is she?" My knees almost buckled. She looked about Lucia's age, maybe a year younger. For a split second, I was thrown back to the night I stood on our apartment balcony, telling myself that my daughter would never know that word. And here, a little girl who wasn't mine was using it. Was she Giovanni's child? Was she Isabella's? Had he moved on that quickly? My stomach churned. Giovanni's jaw tightened. "She is our server," he said, his voice clipped. His eyes never left mine. "Bring us coffee. 3 espressos." He paused and looked down at the little girl. "And orange juice for Alessia." Alessia. The name floated between us. I nodded, making myself breathe. "Of course," I said. I set down the water and turned to leave, my hands shaking. Behind me, I heard Isabella's voice, dripping with disdain. "I asked for a professional staff," she said to Giovanni, her tone sharp. "Not someone from your past." Giovanni's reply was low, dangerous. "Watch your tone," he said. "She's doing her job. Focus on yours." Heat crept up my neck. I pushed through the curtain and practically ran to the espresso machine. My mind was racing. Why was he here? Why had he brought a little girl? How had he recognized me instantly? Did he know about Lucia? I slammed the portafilter into place and turned on the steam wand. The hiss of milk frothing grounded me for a moment. Marco hovered nearby, eyes wide. "Are you okay?" he whispered. "No," I whispered back, my voice trembling. "It's him. It's really him. And there's a child with him. She called him Papa." Marco's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Mamma mia," he breathed. "What are you going to do?" "My job," I said, forcing my hands to steady. "He doesn't know about Lucia. He can't. I need to get through this service and then go home." But home had my daughter. Home was not safe anymore. The thought made me dizzy. I pushed it aside and focused on the coffee. I poured 3 espressos, the dark liquid pooling in white porcelain cups. I added sugar packets and tiny spoons. I filled a glass with fresh orange juice. Then, balancing the tray on my palm like I had done 1,000 times, I walked back to the private room. As I entered, Giovanni's eyes locked onto mine. They were full of a storm I couldn't read. He had been angry at me the last time we spoke, hurt by my decision to leave. Now there was something else. Regret, perhaps, or confusion at seeing me alive and working in a bakery. He watched my every movement as if I were an apparition he feared might disappear again. I placed the espressos and the orange juice on the table. My hand brushed his fingers for a brief second. Electricity shot up my arm. I stepped back quickly. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Yes," Isabella said before Giovanni could speak. She leaned forward, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "A sample of your best white cake with raspberry filling, and something chocolate for Alessia. And tell the baker no fondant. I hate fondant." "Of course," I said, writing on my notepad, even though I would never forget an order given in that tone. I glanced at Alessia. She was staring at me with wide eyes. She raised her doll and whispered something to it. My heart clenched. I forced myself to leave. Giovanni's voice followed me. "Sophia?" he said softly. I stopped but didn't turn around. "Yes, Mr. Ricci, we need to talk," he said. "After this, please." I gripped my notepad until the edge cut into my palm. "I don't think that's a good idea," I murmured, then walked through the curtain before my composure could crack. In the kitchen, my hands shook so badly I almost dropped a tray. I took a deep breath and reminded myself why I was there. Money, rent, Lucia. I assembled the cake samples with robotic precision. I cut a slice of vanilla cake with raspberry preserves and silky buttercream. I placed a square of dark chocolate cake on another plate. I added forks and napkins. When I pushed through the curtain again, Isabella was scrolling through her phone, her lips pressed tight. Giovanni sat back in his chair, eyes on the water carafe. Alessia hummed softly, moving her doll around the table. She looked up when she saw me and smiled tentatively. It felt like a knife. "Here are your samples," I said, placing the plates down. "Vanilla with raspberry and chocolate fudge." Isabella ignored me. She cut a small piece of cake and placed it on her tongue. She chewed, swallowed, and sniffed. "Too sweet," she declared. "The texture is dry. This will not do. Giovanni, tell your friend to do better." Giovanni shot her a look. "You have a list of vendors approved by your father," he said coolly. "If you don't like it, pick another bakery." She huffed. "This tasting is a waste of my time. We should have gone to La Durée." "Go then," he said, his patience thin. "This is my bakery, my friend's bakery. We are not at your beck and call." She glared at him. "Don't forget who arranged this wedding," she said in a low voice that I still heard. "You're marrying me because my father allowed it, not because you wanted to. I could call the whole thing off and you'd be at war by nightfall." Giovanni's jaw tightened. "We can always go to war," he said softly, menace threading his words. "But I'm reconsidering whether a war would be easier than this." The tension in the room thickened. Isabella opened her mouth to retort, but Giovanni held up a hand. "Enough," he said. He looked at me. "Bring a box for the samples. We'll take them to go. Alessia wants to feed her doll." Isabella rolled her eyes but said nothing. She pulled out her phone and began texting furiously. Giovanni reached over and smoothed a hand over Alessia's hair. The affection was natural. My heart twisted again. I turned and went to get a box, my mind spinning. If this woman was his fiancée, if he was really going to marry her, why was he here with a little girl and a look of longing when he saw me? What game was this? I returned with a white pastry box and packed the remaining cake. As I slid the pastries inside, Alessia slid off her chair and toddled over to me. She looked up at me and whispered, "Can I have a cookie?" Her voice was soft and hesitant. I glanced at Giovanni. He nodded once. I smiled at Alessia, trying not to cry. "I'll ask," I said. I ducked into the kitchen, grabbed a small chocolate chip cookie from the display, and slipped it into her hand when I came back. Her face lit up. She bit into it, crumbs sticking to her lips. "Grazie," she whispered. She reached out and tugged on my apron strings. "You look like my mama," she said quietly, her lisp making the words even more like a dagger. My breath caught. "Do I?" I asked, forcing a smile. "What does your mama look like?" Giovanni looked away, his jaw clenching. Isabella scoffed. "Dead," she said flatly. Her mother was a maid my father hired in Sicily. She had an accident. "Alessia lives with us now," Giovanni insisted. The way she said maid made my skin crawl. Alessia's mother was gone. The little girl looked at me with Giovanni's eyes and called me kind, and my chest ached. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "She had to go," Isabella continued, her tone dismissive. "She was trouble. All she gave us was this child." Giovanni's hand tightened on the arm of his chair until his knuckles turned white. He flicked his gaze to me. "That's enough, Isabella," he said, his voice like ice. "You've said too much." Isabella rolled her eyes and stood. "Whatever," she said. "I'm going to the car. I have a dress fitting. Don't be late." She strutted out of the room, her heels clicking on the tile. One of the bodyguards followed her. Another stayed by the door, watching. The atmosphere shifted when she left. It was as if the air had been sucked out and replaced with something heavy and intimate. Giovanni stood and stepped closer to me. He towered over me, but instead of feeling intimidated, I felt the old familiar pull, like gravity remembered me. I shook it off. "Sophia," he said quietly. "I need to explain." "No," I said sharply, cutting him off. "You need nothing. You have everything. A fiancé, a child, a business. I'm working in a bakery. What could you possibly need from me?" "To talk," he said, his voice strained. "Alone." "I don't think that's wise," I said, glancing at the bodyguard. "Your fiancé seems the jealous type." He snorted. "You think I care about her jealousy? She's a pawn. She is a means to an end." Her father insisted on this engagement to solidify an alliance. I agreed, because I thought it was the only way to get out without bloodshed. 5 years ago, when you left, I needed power to protect you. I thought marrying Isabella would give me that leverage. I thought once the dust settled, and I could go to you and explain, but you disappeared. And I had to choose between burning the world down or playing along. I played along. "And now?" I asked, disbelief lacing my words. "Are you still playing?" He shook his head. "No. Now I'm ready to stop. I've spent the last 5 years building my empire and slowly detaching from the parts that put us in danger. I have businesses that are almost legitimate. I have men loyal to me and records that would bring my enemies down. I have enough power to walk away, but I don't want to walk alone. I never wanted to." I stared at him. So many emotions warred inside me. Anger for the nights I cried in a dingy apartment. Sadness for the love we lost. Fear for the things he was still tangled in. And a small flicker of hope I didn't want to acknowledge. "And her?" I nodded towards the door Isabella had disappeared behind. "Your fiancé? She will be taken care of," he said softly. "Her father will not go quietly, but I have leverage. I will end it. But first, I need to know something." He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is Lucia mine?" The words hit me like a blow. I felt as if someone had ripped open my chest and exposed the secret I had guarded for 4 years. I inhaled sharply, my knees going weak. "How do you know about her?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "Luca saw her," he said simply. Luca, one of Giovanni's long-trusted bodyguards, was the man who had shadowed me with his eyes from the moment I walked in. "He saw you walking her to preschool. He saw her hair, her eyes. He said she looked like you. He said she laughed like me." Giovanni's voice cracked on the last word. I had him follow you because I needed to know you were safe. I've known for a year that you have a daughter. I didn't know if she was mine. I needed to see for myself. All the blood drained from my face. You had me followed? I hissed, anger and fear surging. After everything, you had someone watch me. I left to keep Lucia safe from your world, and you just dragged it into mine. I did it to protect you, he said, pain flashing in his eyes. I needed to know where you were. You think you left without leaving a trace, but I knew exactly where you went. I let you go because I thought it was safer. But I couldn't completely let go. I needed to know you were alive. Please, Sophia. Tell me, is she mine? My heart pounded. I should lie, I thought. I should tell him no and send him away. But one look at Alessia, still coloring quietly nearby, her feet swinging, and I couldn't lie. I couldn't rob Lucia of the chance to know her father if he was trying to become someone who wouldn't put her in danger. I took a deep breath. Yes, I whispered. She's yours. Giovanni's knees seemed to give out. He reached for the table to steady himself. His eyes filled with tears. He blinked them away, but one slipped down his cheek. He brushed it aside angrily. I missed 4 years, he whispered. 4 years I can never get back. I miss them too, I said, my voice shaking. I raised her by myself. I took her to doctor's appointments alone. I taught her to walk and talk. My throat closed. You weren't there because I couldn't trust you to protect her. I couldn't trust that your love for me would outweigh your duty to your family. I needed to keep her safe, and that meant keeping her away from you. I won't apologize for that. I'm not asking for an apology, he said. I'm asking for a chance. To know her. To be there now. To make it right. I don't expect you to forgive me for the past, but I'm begging you to let me be her father, to let me protect her, to let me love her. My eyes stung. Protect her? I repeated, bitterness creeping in. You're engaged to a woman whose father orders hits at weddings. You come into my place of work surrounded by men with guns. Your world isn't safe, Giovanni. Your presence alone puts her at risk. He stepped closer. I know, he said. That's why I've been untangling from it. That's why I asked you to wait 5 years. That's why I'm standing here today, ready to burn it all down. I will leave it. For you. For Lucia. I have a plan. A plan, I said, half laughing, half choking. It always comes down to plans with you. Plans that involve lies and secrets and deals. How do I know this isn't another half-truth to keep me around while you secure your empire? He flinched. Because I have nothing to gain by lying now, he said hoarsely. I have everything to lose. If I walk away from you, I lose my family twice. If I walk away from the business, I lose my power. One of those things matters, the other doesn't. So I'm choosing. I'm choosing you. I wanted to believe him. I also wanted to protect my daughter from the pain I had endured. What about Isabella? I asked. What about her family? They won't let you go easily. He shook his head. No, they won't. Her father thinks he has control over me because of a contract. But he underestimated my willingness to walk away from everything. I have something he doesn't, information that would ruin him. I've been gathering evidence of his dealings for years. If he pushes me, I will give it to the feds. My eyebrows shot up. The feds? As in the FBI? He nodded. Yes. I'd rather turn state's evidence and serve time for my crimes than live under Castellano's thumb. I'd rather go into witness protection with you and our daughter than let him control my future. This is how serious I am. Shock rippled through me. Giovanni Ricci, a man whose pride had always been his armor, was willing to go to prison to keep us safe. Could I trust that? Why are you telling me this here? I asked, my mind swirling. In a bakery full of witnesses? Because I needed you to see it in my eyes, he said. To know I'm not playing games. To know that even with Isabella in the next room and my men outside, I'm choosing you. I could have come to your apartment at night. I could have cornered you in an alley. I didn't. I came here, in public, because I won't hurt you. I pressed a hand to my forehead. I need to think, I murmured. I need to go home. Lucia is with my neighbor. I need to pick her up. I need to breathe. Let me come with you, he pleaded. Let me meet her. No, I said, more firmly than I felt. Not today. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know what a father is. I will not spring you on her like a surprise. I need to prepare her. And you need to handle your fiancé and your father-in-law and whatever deals you've entangled yourself in. Fair, he said, swallowing. When can I see you? I don't know, I whispered. I have a shift tomorrow. I have class in the afternoon. Lucia has school. Maybe Thursday evening, at a park. Somewhere public. Noon. No bodyguards, no guns. Thursday, he repeated. Noon, what park? I thought quickly. Prospect Park, I said. By the lake. If you're late, I leave. If I see men with you, I leave. Do you understand? He nodded. Yes, then we'll talk, I said. But if you show up with any hint of threat, that's it. I'll take Lucia and disappear again. And you won't find us next time. His eyes softened. I won't let you disappear again, he said gently. I've lost too much time already. I blinked back tears. This conversation is over, I said, forcing my professional tone back in place. Your order is ready. Please pay at the register. Have a good day. He flinched at my coldness, but he nodded. You too, he murmured. Tell our daughter. Tell her she likes balloons. I don't know. Tell her I like balloons. That's silly. Tell her I'll see her soon. He shook his head, suddenly looking young and lost. Then he squared his shoulders, placed $100 bill on the table, and walked out, Alessia on his hip. The bodyguard followed. Isabella never turned to look back. When the door closed behind them, I felt like my legs would give out. I leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Marco slipped in, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? No, I whispered, but I will be. I have to be. The rest of my shift passed in a haze. My hands moved automatically, brewing coffee and frosting cupcakes while my mind replayed every word Giovanni had said. 5 years ago, I had left because I believed he would never choose me over his power. Now he claimed he was ready to throw away his empire for our daughter. Could people change? Could love endure through betrayal and time? Could I trust him to keep Lucia safe? My heart wanted to say yes. My head screamed no. I didn't know which to listen to. When my shift ended, I rushed home. Mrs. Patel opened her door with Lucia on her hip. She coughed once after you left, but then slept for an hour, she said, her voice a soothing balm. She drew me a picture of a princess and a cat. She ate her applesauce and asked about you every 5 minutes. Lucia reached out for me, her dark curls falling into her eyes. Mama, she squealed. I drawed you a picture. I pulled her into my arms and kissed her hair, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and crayons. I can't wait to see it, I whispered, my throat thick. We have a new rule, okay? Starting now, if anyone asks you about a man named Giovanni or tries to talk to you, you run straight to me or Mrs. Patel. You don't go with anyone you don't know, not even if they say they have balloons. Lucia blinked, confused. Like stranger danger? She asked seriously. She had learned about this at preschool. The teacher had drawn a stop sign and taught them to say, "No thank you. I need my grown-up." Yes, like that, I said, forcing a smile. You're so smart. Lucia nodded sagely. Stranger danger, she repeated. We don't go with strangers. We scream and run. Mrs. Patel looked at me over Lucia's head, concern in her gaze. She knew some of my story, enough to worry. Everything okay, Beta? She murmured. I shook my head and forced a smile. It will be, I said. Thank you for watching her. Inside our apartment, I closed the door and locked the 3 locks and slid the chain into place. I set Lucia on the couch and took the drawing she offered. It was a colorful scribble of a woman with brown hair and a little girl holding a balloon. I swallowed. It's beautiful, I said, my voice rough. Is this us? Lucia nodded proudly. That's me, and that's you, she said, pointing. And that's our cat. She pointed to a blob of orange. We didn't have a cat, but she had been begging me for one. And those are balloons because I like balloons. You do? I asked, smoothing her hair. Do you think Papa likes balloons? The word felt foreign on my tongue. She looked at me, puzzled. What's Papa? She asked. Tears stung my eyes. It's a word that means father, I said quietly. It's something we'll talk about soon, okay? Okay, she said cheerfully, unbothered. Can we have mac and cheese for dinner? I smiled through my tears. Yes, I said, we can have mac and cheese. The next 2 days were a blur. I went to class and tried to focus on accounting formulas while my mind drifted to Giovanni's eyes and the way he said, I'm choosing you. Lucia ran a mild fever, so I kept her home from preschool, reading to her while she dozed on the couch. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Giovanni texted once. From an unknown number, Thursday noon, Prospect Park. I'll be there. I didn't reply. I told myself I was only going to hear him out. I owed it to Lucia to know what he would do. I also owed it to myself to make it clear that my daughter's safety came first. Thursday came quickly and too slowly. I dressed Lucia in a pink sweater and jeans. I braided her hair into 2 neat braids, tying the ends with ribbons. She squirmed impatiently. Where are we going? She asked. A park, I said, to meet someone. Mrs. Patel? She asked hopefully. She adored Mrs. Patel. No, I said, my stomach nodding. Someone Mama used to know. Okay, she said, unbothered. Can I bring my doll? Yes, I said, watching her pack her cloth doll into her backpack. I grabbed a tote bag with water and snacks. I slipped a small can of pepper spray into my jacket pocket. I had bought it the night after seeing Giovanni, just in case. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was being smart. We took the train to Brooklyn. Lucia pressed her face to the window, watching the graffiti blur by. When we emerged from the station, the crisp air smelled faintly of water and exhaust. Prospect Park spread out ahead, tree branches still bare, the lake glinting. I checked my watch. 11:55. We had time. We walked to a bench near the water. I sat, my back straight, my heart pounding. Lucia swung her legs and hummed. At noon, I saw him. Giovanni walked down the path, alone, wearing dark jeans and a black coat. His hair was pushed back from his forehead. He looked less like a Mafia don and more like any other Brooklyn dad. He held a red balloon in his hand. It bobbed in the breeze, bright against the gray sky. I blinked, remembering his awkward plea. Tell her I like balloons. He approached slowly, as if not to startle a wild animal. Lucia spotted him. Mama, a man with a balloon, she said, pointing. She loved balloons. Yes, I whispered. That's Giovanni. Giovanni stopped a few feet away, eyes on Lucia. He looked at me. Can I sit? He asked, his voice rough. I nodded stiffly. For a few minutes, he sat on the other end of the bench, leaving space. He held out the balloon to Lucia. Hi, he said softly. I'm Giovanni. Can I give you this balloon? Lucia looked at me for approval. I nodded. She took the balloon, her eyes wide. Thank you, she said shyly. She wrapped the string around her wrist and watched it bob. You're welcome, Giovanni said, his voice trembling. He looked at me. She looks like you. She looks like you, I said back. We sat in awkward silence. He cleared his throat. Lucia, he said gently. My name is Giovanni, but you can call me whatever you want. I'm someone who loves you very much. Lucia tilted her head. Do you live on our street? She asked seriously. Mrs. Patel lives on our street. She loves me. She gives me mango candy. Giovanni smiled, tears glistening. I don't live on your street, he said, but I wish I did. I live somewhere else right now, but I'd like to spend time with you, if your mama says it's okay. Lucia looked at me again. Mama? I took a deep breath. We'll see, I said softly. Lucia, this is the man I told you about. He's your papa. Lucia's eyes widened. She looked at Giovanni, then at me, then at the balloon. She whispered, "Do I call him papa?" I nodded slowly. Tears blurred my vision. "If you want to." She turned to Giovanni and said tentatively, "Papa?" Giovanni's face crumpled. He covered his mouth with his hand. Tears slipped down his cheeks. He nodded rapidly. "Yes," he croaked. "I'm your papa. I'm so happy to meet you." He reached out as if to touch her, then stopped, unsure. Lucia leaned forward and touched his hand with her small fingers. He flinched at the contact, then let out a shaky laugh. "Do you like balloons?" he asked. Lucia giggled. "Yes," she said. "Do you?" He laughed. "I do," he said. "I love balloons." The absurdity of the conversation made me smile despite the tension. For a few minutes we talked about balloons and squirrels and the ducks in the lake. Giovanni told her about a duck he once fed stale bread to as a kid. Lucia told him about the stray cat on our fire escape. The scene was almost normal. Almost. Then a voice shattered it. "Well, isn't this cute?" I looked up. Two men stood a few yards away, leaning casually against a tree. They wore expensive coats and sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. One of them held a cigarette. The other flicked a switchblade open and closed. My heart dropped. I recognized them vaguely from news reports and whispers. The Castellano family's enforcers. Giovanni stiffened. He stood slowly, positioning himself between us and them. "What do you want?" he asked coldly, his tone hardening. The man with the cigarette blew a stream of smoke into the air. "Boss heard you were having a little family reunion," he drawled. "Wanted to send his regards. Congratulations on your kid. Shame you didn't invite him to the baby shower." Giovanni's eyes narrowed. "This isn't your business," he said, each word sharp. "Tell your boss I'll call him." The man flicked his blade. "He's done taking your calls," he said. "He told us to bring the girl. Insurance, he called it, to make sure you don't get any ideas about breaking the deal. Bring her. We leave you alone. You can keep your ex. We're generous." Blood drained from my face. I clutched Lucia tighter. She sensed the change and whimpered. Giovanni's jaw tightened. "No," he said flatly. "You're not touching her." The man laughed. "Come on, Gio. Don't be stupid. Give us the kid. We take her for a little ride. No harm. You call the wedding off. She stays with us. You marry Isabella. She gets returned. Simple." "He will kill you," Giovanni said softly, dangerous calm radiating from him. "If you lay a hand on her." The man shrugged. "He'll kill you if you don't. Choose." He stepped forward. It happened fast. Giovanni shoved Lucia into my arms. "Run!" he hissed. I froze for a fraction of a second, then scooped Lucia up and bolted down the path. My heart hammered. Lucia screamed, clutching the balloon string. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned a corner and nearly ran into a man in a hoodie. He grabbed my arm. I screamed and kicked, the pepper spray fumbling in my pocket. Suddenly a blur slammed into the man, knocking him down. Luca, Giovanni's bodyguard, had appeared out of nowhere, tackling the attacker. "Go!" he shouted. I ran, Lucia clinging to my neck. My breath burned in my lungs. I heard shouts and the sound of fists hitting flesh. I rounded another corner and saw a playground. Parents looked up, eyes wide. I darted toward them. "Please, call 911. I gasped. "Someone's trying to kidnap my daughter." Moms and dads sprang into action. A man in a Yankees cap pulled out his phone. A woman stepped in front of us, her arms out. Lucia sobbed. I crouched behind the metal slide, panting. A siren wailed in the distance. Giovanni appeared seconds later, blood on his knuckles, his eyes wild. He looked at Lucia and me, relief flooding his face. He crouched, hands up. "Are you okay?" he asked, breathing hard. "You brought men," I whispered, rage boiling. "You promised no bodyguards." "I had to," he said, his voice strained. "I didn't trust Castellano. I told Luca to stay back. I didn't know they'd send people. I'm sorry." The siren grew louder. 2 patrol cars screeched up. Officers jumped out. "Everybody freeze!" one yelled. Parents stepped back. The officer took in the scene, a bleeding man in a hoodie on the ground, tackled by Luca, Giovanni with bloodied knuckles, me, shaking with Lucia clinging to my neck. "What happened?" the cop demanded. He looked at Giovanni's face and seemed to recognize him. His eyes narrowed. "Ricci, what trouble are you causing now?" Giovanni raised his hands. "Those men tried to kidnap my daughter," he said evenly. He gestured at the man on the ground. "Ask him who sent him." The man on the ground spat blood. "I don't know," he snarled. "I'm just delivering a message." The cop looked at me. "Ma'am, is that true?" I nodded frantically. "They said they wanted to take my daughter. They threatened us." The cop rubbed his jaw. "Okay, everyone at the station?" he sighed. "Statements, now." At the station, everything was a blur. I sat in a cold room with Lucia on my lap. She clutched her balloon and her doll, eyes wide. I gave a statement. The cops took my information. Giovanni insisted on speaking with a detective privately. I could hear raised voices, then quiet. After an hour, he returned with the detective, a woman with tired eyes. "Ms. Garcia," she said, glancing at my file, "we're releasing you. We have Giovanni's statement. He says he was meeting his estranged wife and child for the first time, and an associate of Mr. Castellano's men tried to take the child. Given what we know about Castellano, we're not pressing charges on you. We will be detaining the attackers. Mr. Ricci is free to go, but we'll be in contact." Lucia clung to me as we walked out. Giovanni trailed behind. Outside, he grabbed my arm gently. "Come with me," he said urgently. "They know about her now. She's not safe in your apartment. Come to my house, please." I wrenched my arm free. "I told you no men, and you brought them, and they still came." Lucia almost... My voice broke. "No, Giovanni, I'm not going anywhere with you." "Then let me stay with you," he begged. "Let me protect you there. Castellano will retaliate. He will try again. You cannot protect her alone." My head spun. He was right. I couldn't take on Mafia men by myself. Lucia deserved a chance to know her father, but she also deserved to live. I hated myself for the choice. "One night," I said, my voice hoarse. "One night at your place. Then I decide." He exhaled, relief flickering in his eyes. "One night?" he agreed. He led us to a waiting SUV, identical to the one he'd used years ago. Lucia climbed in hesitantly, clutching her balloon. I slid in next to her, my heart pounding. Giovanni got in the front. Luca drove. The ride across the city felt like driving into a memory. The sights blurred as we entered the gated estate on Long Island where I had once lived. It was still imposing, still luxurious, still filled with secrets. A guard opened the gate, nodding respectfully. We pulled up to the circular drive. The mansion loomed, stone and ivy and history. Nonna, Giovanni's grandmother, stood at the top of the steps. She looked older but still fierce, her silver hair in a bun. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Sophia," she whispered, rushing down. She embraced me, smelling of lavender and flower. "Mi niña, you're here." She glanced at Lucia. "And this must be our girl." Lucia looked up at her, confused. "Who are you?" "Abuela," Nonna said, tears spilling. "I'm your Nonna, your grandma." She knelt and hugged Lucia, who hesitated, then melted into her embrace. A warmth spread through my chest. Giovanni stood back, watching, his jaw tight. He looked like a man watching a dream he never thought he'd see. Nonna ushered us inside. The house was warm, filled with the smell of simmering tomato sauce. It felt almost cozy despite its size. Lucia's eyes widened at the grand staircase, the chandeliers, the paintings. She whispered, "Is this a castle?" Giovanni smiled. "Sort of," he said. "Do you like castles?" She nodded vigorously. "Yes." "Then this is your castle for tonight," he said softly, "and you're the princess." Lucia giggled. She wasn't fazed by the wealth around her. She was mesmerized by the marble floors that echoed her footsteps, and the lights on the ceiling. I kept close, my nerves humming. Part of me remembered living here. Dinner parties with crystal glasses and deals sealed with handshakes in the study. Part of me was terrified of what lay beneath those memories. That night, we sat at the long dining table. Lucia ate spaghetti with meatballs with gusto. She had never tasted Nona's cooking. She swung her legs under the chair and told Nona about her friend Mia's birthday party. Nona listened, nodding as if it were the most fascinating story. Giovanni watched, an expression of wonder on his face. After dinner, Giovanni asked Lucia if she wanted to see the garden. She looked at me. I nodded, hesitating. 5 minutes, I said. He took her hand and led her through the French doors to the backyard. I watched from the window. The garden was the size of a park, with manicured hedges and a fountain. Giovanni walked slowly, bending down to Lucia's height. She pointed at flowers. He nodded and smiled. He knelt and let her climb on his back. They laughed. It was a picture of normalcy in a life that had never been normal. Nona came to stand beside me, her eyes on them. "He has waited for this," she murmured, "every day for 5 years. He thought you were dead sometimes. He thought you remarried. He thought you hated him. He never stopped loving you." I blinked back tears. "He hurt me," I whispered. "He chose a deal over me. He didn't come after me. He thought he was protecting you by letting you go," Nona said. "He was wrong. He sees that now. He will spend the rest of his life trying to make it up to you. He will burn the world. He already started." I looked at her. "Do you think he can change?" Nonna smiled sadly. "I have seen men change," she said. "Your nonna was a butcher before he became a baker. He used to swing a knife for different reasons. Love changed him. A daughter changed him. Grandchildren changed him. Power is intoxicating, but family is stronger. I believe Giovanni can change. I also believe it will not be easy. It will be dangerous. It will be messy. But I also know that love like yours doesn't come twice. Perhaps it is worth fighting for." I nodded slowly, my heart heavy. "I'm tired," I murmured. "Go sleep," she said. "I have a room ready. I will watch the girl." "Thank you," I said. I kissed Lucia goodnight, my stomach twisting with anxiety. She insisted on sleeping in the castle room. Nonna set her up in a guest room with a canopy bed. I lay down in a room that used to be mine. Everything felt both familiar and foreign. The bed was softer than my mattress in Queens. The sheets smelled of detergent and roses instead of my cheap lavender spray. I closed my eyes, exhaustion pulling me under. For the first time in years, I didn't fall asleep listening for the buzz of a radiator or the footsteps of a neighbor. I listened for gunfire. It didn't come. I woke before dawn to the smell of coffee. I padded downstairs. In the kitchen, Giovanni stood at the counter, the first rays of light catching his face. He looked tired but peaceful. A mug of coffee sat in front of him. He turned when he heard me. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning," I said. "Where's Lucia?" "Upstairs, still sleeping," he said. "Nonna just checked on her." He gestured to a mug. "Want coffee?" I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic when he handed it to me. We stood in silence, sipping. After a moment, he spoke. "Castellano knows where you live," he said quietly. "The men who came to the park followed me, but they also know you. They'll try again." My stomach dropped. "Then we need to leave," I said. "Lucia and I, away from all of this." He nodded. "I agree. But if you disappear now, without my protection, you'll be vulnerable. Castellano will see it as weakness and hunt you. I can't let that happen. I'm meeting with my lawyer this afternoon. I'm going to turn over the evidence. I'm going to make a deal with the FBI. It's the only way to neutralize him." My heart pounded. "And then what?" "Witness protection," he said. "New names. New lives. Out of the city. The 3 of us. Maybe we bring Nonna if she wants. We cut ties with everyone else. We start over. It's drastic, but it's the only way to ensure he doesn't come after us." I stared at my coffee, my mind spinning. Leave New York? Leave our lives? Start over somewhere no one knew us? It sounded terrifying, and it sounded like the only path to peace. Would you really do that? I asked softly. Leave your empire. He looked at me, earnest, in a heartbeat. He said, I was never in love with power. I was in love with you. Everything I did was to protect us, even when it broke us. Now I'm done. I set the mug down. And if he kills you before you can testify, Giovanni's jaw tightened. That's a risk, he admitted. But I'll take it. For you. For her. We'll go to the meeting this afternoon. My lawyer, my evidence, 2 federal agents. Then we'll pack. We'll be gone by nightfall. The sooner we disappear, the better. It happened quickly after that. Giovanni's lawyer, Carla, a sharp woman with red lipstick, arrived and they pored over documents in the study. I played with Lucia in the garden, pushing her on the swing while my mind raced. Nonna packed bags quietly, humming a lullaby. Luca stood guard at every door. A black SUV pulled up around noon. 2 men in suits and sunglasses stepped out. They looked like they belonged on TV. They introduced themselves as Agent Miller and Agent Chen. They shook Giovanni's hand. They looked at me kindly. We'll keep you safe, Agent Chen said, if you help us put Castellano away. Giovanni slid a thick folder across the table. Here's everything, he said. Financial records, voice recordings, lists of shipments, names. It's enough to bury him. Agent Miller flipped through the pages, whistling softly. You've been busy, he said. Are you prepared to testify? Yes, Giovanni said. He looked at me. We are. There's a price, Agent Chen warned. You'll go into witness protection. You'll move. You'll be given new identities. You'll cut ties with friends and family. You'll follow our rules. Are you ready for that? Giovanni nodded. Yes. And you? Agent Chen looked at me. I felt as if the ground were shifting under me. I thought of Mrs. Patel, Marco, my classmates, the bodega lady. I thought of Lucia's preschool. I thought of the park where we had picnics. I thought of the city lights. I thought of safety. I thought of love. Yes, I said, my voice firm. I'm ready. Agent Miller slid 2 contracts across the table. Sign here, he said. Giovanni picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed his name. Then he passed the pen to me. I stared at the paper. It felt like signing away my past and stepping into a void. I signed my name, Sofia Garcia, and felt tears prick my eyes. It was the last time I'd sign it. I slid the paper back. It was done. We had an hour to pack essentials. I shoved clothes into suitcases, grabbed Lucia's doll and her favorite blanket. I took a picture of my grandmother's rosary off the nightstand and slipped it into my pocket. Nonna packed old photographs, a few books, a jar of homemade pasta sauce she insisted we'd need. Giovanni opened a safe hidden behind a painting and pulled out a handful of cash in a small velvet box. He slipped the box into his pocket. I wondered what was inside. The agents led us to the car. We'll drive you to a safe location, Agent Miller said. From there, we'll arrange transport to your new home. You'll meet your caseworker there. You'll have new names, new IDs, new lives. We piled into the SUV. Giovanni held Lucia on his lap. I sat next to them. Nonna sat next to me. Luca drove behind us in another car, promising to join us later. The gates closed behind us. I looked back at the mansion that had been my home in prison. I watched it shrink in the distance. I felt a strange mixture of relief and grief. We drove for hours, out of the city, through towns and past farms. Lucia fell asleep, her head on Giovanni's shoulder. He looked down at her with a mixture of love and regret. He reached across the seat and took my hand. Thank you, he whispered, for giving me this chance. I squeezed his hand back. Thank you for choosing it, I whispered. Don't make me regret it. He smiled sadly. I won't. We arrived at a small house nestled among trees by a lake. It looked nothing like the mansion. It looked like a place where anonymity thrived. We unpacked. The agents gave us new IDs. Giovanni became John Rossi. I became Sofia Rossi. Lucia became Lucy Rossi. Nonna became Maria. We practiced our new names. We practiced a cover story. We were a family relocating from New York for work. No details, no questions. The first few weeks were surreal. We shopped for groceries at a small market where no one recognized us. We bought furniture at a store where the clerk called us by our new last name. I registered Lucia, Lucy, for kindergarten under her new name. She looked at me with wide eyes when I explained. "We're playing pretend?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes," I said. "For a while." She nodded and took it in stride. Giovanni, John, worked odd jobs around town, fixing fences and roofs. He built furniture. He came home with calluses and splinters. He kissed me when he walked through the door. We cooked dinner together. We played board games. We went for walks by the lake. We breathed. 6 months passed. Then a year. John and I got married again in the small town hall, under our new names, wearing simple clothes. There were no Mafia families, no deals, no bodyguards, just us, Lucia, Nonna, and a kind judge. John slipped a gold band onto my finger. It wasn't elaborate. It was real. It meant everything. Life was simpler, but not perfect. John struggled with nightmares. He missed his cousins. He missed the food. He missed Italian sun. Sometimes he'd stand at the window and stare at the horizon as if looking for New York. He didn't talk to his mother or siblings. He couldn't. They thought he was dead. That weight hung heavy on him. Sometimes I missed Mrs. Patel's mango candies and Marco's flower-covered apron. I missed the hum of the city. I missed the feeling of belonging somewhere. But when I watched Lucia run through the yard, free from fear, I knew we'd done the right thing. 2 years into our new life, I discovered I was pregnant. This time, there were no secrets. I told John, who lifted me and spun me around. He cried. He kissed my belly. He said, "We're going to do this right." The pregnancy was smooth. The baby kicked at night, sending ripples across my skin. Lucia talked to my belly, telling her sibling stories about ducks and dragons. Nonna knit booties and blankets. When I gave birth, John held my hand. The hospital was small, the nurses kind. They didn't know our past. They knew us as the Rossi family with the 5-year-old daughter and the new baby on the way. Our son arrived on a rainy afternoon. He had a head full of dark hair. We named him Matteo, after my father. He slept with his fist curled under his cheek, just like John did. We took him home and introduced him to Lucia. She looked at him with awe. "I'm a big sister," she whispered. "I'll teach him about balloons." Our days became a blur of feedings and diaper changes and school pickups. There were hard moments, nights when Matteo cried for hours, mornings when Lucia refused to eat oatmeal, days when the car wouldn't start. There were also moments of profound joy. Lucia's first lost tooth, Matteo's first steps on the grass, John teaching them how to fish at the lake, Nonna singing lullabies in Spanish and Italian, our first Christmas in the little house with a tree we cut ourselves. After 3 years, we almost felt safe. Almost. Then the letter came. It was addressed to John's old name. It had no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a photo clipped to it. The photo showed a teenage girl in a white dress, standing on a stage with a certificate in her hand. She had curly hair and deep brown eyes. She looked like Giovanni. The handwritten note below read, "She asked me to give this to you. She said thank you for the balloons. It was signed with an ornate C." My breath caught. Alessia. She had grown up. She had graduated. She remembered the man who had once tried to be her father. She had survived. And someone, perhaps Castellano himself, had sent this picture as a peace offering or a warning. We didn't know which. John stared at it for a long time, his fingers tracing the outline of her face. He whispered, "She made it." We made it too, I realized. We had built a life from the rubble of our past. We had created something new and fragile and precious. We had taken unimaginable risks, lost time, and found each other again. Our story hadn't been clean or easy or safe. It had been messy and painful and unpredictable, but it had been ours. It had been real. It had been worth it. One evening, as the sun set over the lake, painting the water orange and pink, John and I sat on the porch. Lucia and Matteo chased fireflies in the yard. Nonna hummed softly in the kitchen. John's hand rested on mine, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked softly. I shook my head. "No," I said. "Not the leaving. Not the coming back. Not the running. Not the hiding. Not the starting over. Every choice led us here. To this moment. To this peace. How could I regret it?" He smiled, his eyes crinkling. "Neither do I," he said. He leaned over and kissed me, slow and tender. The sun dipped below the horizon. The fireflies blinked. Our children laughed. The world was quiet. We had fought for this life. We had earned it, and we would keep fighting to protect it, come what may. As I leaned against John's shoulder, watching our children dance in the twilight, I felt something settle in my chest. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It wasn't perfect or easy. It was better. It was real. It was ongoing. Our story didn't end with a wedding cake tasting or a daring escape or even a new identity. It would continue as long as we were willing to choose love over fear, to choose each other over power, to choose a future over a past. And that was a story worth continuing,